Shelby here. Welcome back to A Little Literary Love. I'm glad you all are with me. Today's video is going to be my end of July monthly wrap-up. So I was still in a bit of a reading slump, as you probably could tell from my mid-month wrap-up. But I read slightly more for the end half of July. I read 5 books. And all of them were actual like full-length books, so no novellas. So that was a little bit of improvement. So I read only a total of 9 books for July. It was just a slow month and I was just not feeling like anything that I was reading. But today that I'm filming this is actually the 3rd or 4th of August, and I've already finished 1 book and I'm like 2/3 of the way through 2 more books. So hopefully this means my slump has ended, because I'm actually reading some really decent books and I've been really into them. So hopefully my mid-month wrap-up for August will be better. But anyway, we're gonna hop right into the books. Hopefully this is another pretty quick video. So the first book that I read in the latter half of July is gonna be Pac Bound by Kate King and Jessa Wilder. This is the first actual book of the Blissful Omegaverse series. I read the novella in the first half of July, and that's in my video. This is our heroine. She's an Omega and she is at a Omega boarding school, and then she goes through this match kind of process, and she ends up getting matched with her former friends. Well, no, actually, scratch that. She ends up getting matched with this guy, but then her former friends that she was involved with end up kidnapping her from this guy, and they, form a reverse harem situation with her because they're all alphas. I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. I was very disappointed with this because I felt like there was so much promise from the prequel novella of this series. I ended up giving that one 4 stars, but this one just, it was very angsty, which for the most part I like that, but there are a lot of plot holes in this and things that just didn't really make sense. It ended up being the match process for the Omegas was more just their bid on, and you don't really know that, and then the guys are there then are in her harem of sorts, and they are don't understand what's going on, and I'm just it's pretty obvious, but I don't know, they just seem clueless. The steam on this is high, but it just really fell flat for me, and I do not plan on continuing this series. I may try something else from these authors in the future, but for now I'm kind of done. Then I read Good Girl by Sam Hall. This is the first book in the Season series, and this is another Omegaverse story. This is about our heroine who is an Omega, and she ends up going through a season of sorts, kind of like if you read any kind of historical romances, where the heroine is out in society to try to present herself, to try to get matched and find a husband. Well, that's kind of what she's doing, but it's to try to find an alpha or a pack to be with her. And she meets this guy, and I believe he's an alpha, but he's already in a polyamorous relationship with 3 other men, but their parents don't approve of this relationship. So he propositions her and basically asks her to be their beard and pretend to be with them so that they can be together with their group of guys. So this is gonna be another reverse harem because she ends up falling in love with all of the men and they're already in love with each other. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed the first half of this story, but my issue with this is that, which is also my issue with a lot of other reverse harems or polyamory type stories, is that The relationships that she had with 2 of the guys was really well done. There was lots of page time that we see their development, but then there was 2 other guys, because this is a like 5-person like group, ends up being with her added on. The relationship with these other 2 guys just felt very underdeveloped, and it didn't really make sense why she was also in love with them as well. And I just wish there was a little bit more brought in with that. The steam on this was very high, which I enjoyed. And for the most part, I did enjoy the plot of this too. There's more books in this series that I may try at some point. Just like I said, I just wish it was developed a little bit more. Then I read I Think Not by Sinclair Kelly. This is the first book in the Not Yours Omegaverse series, and this is another Omegaverse story. This is about our heroine, who is an Omega again, and she is like kind of like a social media star. It almost kind of reminded me a little bit of like TikTok, where she like makes these videos, but she's basically making these videos about how Omegas should like have their own choice. And she's promoting like, you don't have to find a pack, you don't have to be with a pack and find an alpha to be satisfied. But then she's got these rivals, which is a pack of alphas plus 1 beta, and they are looking for an omega, and they're promoting like, hey, these are the benefits of being in a pack. So they end up going, they invite her to this like convention to speak with them like on this panel that they're on. And of course, as soon as she meets them, she is very much attracted to all of them, and she ends up going into heat. So they have to like whisk her away to keep her safe. And then there's like this like subplot going on with this stalker that she has. I gave this 3.5 stars. This, again, kind of like the last book, I really enjoyed most of this book, especially the beginning half, even up to maybe around like 75% of this book. But then the ending just kind of felt kind of flat for me, and I was very annoyed because it does have that like miscommunication or like lack of communication between some of the characters in here that I just felt like was very unnecessary. And that's one of my biggest, like a big pet peeve of mine, is having that in a book. So I didn't care for that. There are, like I said, trigger warnings because she does have a stalker. She ends up getting kidnapped at some point, so there are trigger warnings for that in this book. Steam on this is very high, which I love. You know, all know that. So yeah, so that was that book. Then I read The Point of No Return by Devyn Sinclair. This is the first book that's not going to be an Omegaverse story. This one it's another reverse harem. It's a like fantasy romance, and this is also a spin on the Phantom of the Opera. We have our heroine Christine, and she is a singer, and she is staying at the famous like opera house in Paris, doing this opera play or whatever. And when she comes there are 3 gargoyles that as soon as they like smell her, they're like, oh, she's our mate. So it does have this whole fated mates thing, monsters, because the gargoyles, and yeah, so they all just kind of get together. I ended up giving this 3 stars. Again, for the most part, this was enjoyable. It just felt like it needed more plot to it and a little bit more development again with like all the characters. It felt like it was mostly just about the sex, like the whole them being in love didn't really make sense to me. It was very quick. It was very insta love, which is sometimes a thing with the whole fated mates thing. My other issue is that the 3 guys, gargoyles or whatever, they just felt very like cookie cutter. Like they were all very similar to each other, so they didn't really have too much of their own personalities. And then there's another thing where she has this like rivalry with another actor or whatever in the play, and it just kind of felt like it didn't really need to be there. There wasn't a whole lot done with that. It just kind of pops up every now and again, like, oh, this chick hates her, and it just, I don't know. Steam on this was pretty high, but it was kind of a mess story. And then the last book that I read for July is going to be Lifeblood by Amara Rae. This is the first book in the Immortal Coven series. This is about our heroine. She is a life witch, and she is part of a coven. She is actually part of like the head coven in her region that she's from. So her coven consists of, which is going to be more stories in this like series, there are 4 different elemental witches, so like fire, water, air, and earth. And then there is her, a life witch, and then there's also a death witch. So they have 6 members of their coven. And then there are also a lot of other supernatural creatures. This story focuses on her, their heroine, and she ends up, like, they are going out investigating something. I can't remember. Something happens that they have to go investigate, and she ends up getting kidnapped by these warlocks. In this world, warlocks and witches are mortal enemies. They hate each other, and especially our hero of the story, who is a warlock, absolutely loathes witches, mostly because witches killed his parents, so he has a big grudge against them. So he kidnaps our heroine, but then when he kidnaps her, he realizes that they are fated mates again. So here's that fated mates trope. And he kind of has to deal with that because he doesn't like witches, and the group that he's warlocks that he's with kind of wants some information out of her. So he's trying, he has this war within himself because he needs to torture her for the information, but then the idea of laying a hand on her like physically ills him because they are mates. So they kind of have to work through some things with that. I am giving this 4 stars. I was pleasantly surprised by this one about how much I enjoyed this. I loved our 2 characters. I love the steam of this. I love the development between these 2 people. It almost kind of has that like grumpy sunshine kind of trope because our heroine is just so, she's quiet and she's so like compassionate. Whereas he is very much like aggressive. He's very much more domineering and alpha. He's very arrogant, but he just seeing them develop their love for each other, I just thought was great, and how protective he can be. How protective he was of her. He has that like touch her and die kind of vibe to him, and he also has the vibe of I hate everybody but you. So I really enjoy this, and I do plan on continuing this series because it was very enjoyable. So yeah, so those are going to be the 5 books that I read in the latter half of July. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. If I can talk today, oh my goodness. Let me know, comment down below with some of your favorite books, if you've read any of these books, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me, and I will see you on the next one. Bye guys.